Freeman. Well, I'm kind of back in the backwaters again, starting all over with all of my technology, and so therefore I have no music for you on these shows. Sorry about that. Just getting myself back up to running in full steam. Of course, the world's not gonna let me relax. There's too much going on, so much to talk about. Let's get going. Alright, let me just see if I've got this straight now. Back in 1913, the Griffins got together and designed the first pre-planned city of Australia. It was known as Canberra. The capital was finally placed there, the Parliamentary House, in 1988, overshadowed by Henry Kissinger. This is very curious. I see as we start to get to the point where we're at now, as everyone is caught up in political intrigue against nations, the global elite are setting up their capitals and preparing a world that's beyond our comprehension. The things that they're building are so far out there that it's almost unbelievable. When we look to Canberra, Astana, or Dubai, we find very unique architecture being thrown up with very interesting geometric patterns. Now, when you get to Canberra, let's think about Australia for a minute. Now, first of all, on January 9th, I had predicted on the Free Zone that some effects would be seen out of the VLF array there in Australia. That's Boeing's VLF array, and you can find that linked up on freemantv.com. So there was no big surprise, well, maybe a little bit of a surprise when a big droid eye opened up over the continent of Australia, but immediately I knew that was exactly where the VLF array was. Now we're going to get a little deeper in understanding and thinking about what all of these ultra-low frequency radio transmitters such as HARPs or iSCAT and of course the VLF array in Australia might be up to. And I looked into this many times. If you're unsure, go watch my video on HARP, as you'll see that I told you about Milosevic accusing us of using HARP to cause earthquakes in the Middle East. Now we have Hugo Chavez and the Russian military saying the same thing. For some reason, people are listening now. But when we get to Canberra, this meeting place, as it is known, this is the real meaning of the word Canberra, meeting place. And we get to the idea that over in Australia, if you all remember, that's where they established Echelon. How many of you remember Echelon? I used to make jokes about it on the phone when we would accidentally say bomb, or we would say, you know, anything pretty much out of my mouth. I knew Echelon was going to be triggered. I'm pretty certain I have my own official agent there in Echelon in Australia tracking us. And I don't know if you guys remember Echelon, but this was a UK-US alliance that allowed for spy versus spy, basically working together so that they could spy on America without violating the laws, and the UK could violate their own laws by spying on their people, all in Australia through Echelon. Now, do you remember Bill O'Reilly? Of course you do. Bill O'Reilly and Glenn Beck making it to movie theaters near you these days. Well, Bill O'Reilly actually was reporting on Echelon way back in the day. I think that was mid-90s when I was watching this, and he got into the whole concept of how they could track cell phones so quickly that there was a person in the Middle East that the Russians needed and wanted to kill, and the man knew that he was able to avoid the military of the Russians because their tracking, well, it took about 5 minutes, so he could use his phone for that long. Little did he know that the Echelon used by the Americans was immediate, and as soon as he touched his phone, he was bombed. According to Bill O'Reilly. He was very adamant and very excited about all of this, you know, and as he should well be. That was one of the first violations of our privacy that was quite public. So we have in Australia Echelon. We've got the Boeing VLF array, which is a hexagonal antenna array that's, you know, doing what? We're not too sure. It's certainly not sending Dorito commercials to Ursa Major. Also in Australia, there's more going on because you must realize that there is such a thing as Project Wormwood, which is the Learmonth Solar Observatory, which is very near the VLF array. This is Project Wormwood, and if you realize, Wormwood, of course, is the incoming doom coming from space, according to the Bible. And, you know, straight to its point, Learmonth is set up as a planetary defense satellite or telescope to be watching for these incoming bodies such as G1.9. Is this the case? Is Planet X on its way? Are these being set up as these in preparation, being able to see? Of course, there's the South Pole telescope that also seems to be tracking Planet X. And of course, today I got a report saying the CIA is backing Zecharia Sitchin. No doubts about that. I could see where this would all fill into the pattern. So you can see that Australia is not just simply some little continent sitting off over there, especially take into account that the whole parliamentary triangle, the way that this pre-planned city, the first pre-planned city, was established. Now consider pre-planned cities. We're talking about things like Epcot, like Celebration Florida, or even the Venus Project, made famous through the Zeitgeist movement. But this pre-planned city, set up on a geometrical pattern, was actually established back in 1913. Now you better believe they were deep into the occult back then, and Tesla was just getting well, pretty well known at that point. As I said, this parliamentary triangle is set up. It also has a hexagonal city layout within that. And then the Parliament House, which was overseen by Henry Kissinger, is 4 times larger than necessary for the country of Australia. Many believe that this Canberra, or meeting place, is the lead elite capital and will take its position as things start to shift. Now realize that Henry Kissinger, being deeply involved with the building of the planetary house there in Australia, in Canberra, he is also the forerunner and the one who established the idea of 10 regions of the United States, which Obama just passed through his legislation, his executive order, establishing 10 regional governors, which we're all still wondering and waiting to see if Arnold Schwarzenegger is going to take a position in that. 5 of those governors are handpicked by the president himself. So we see Kissinger's plan, and therefore what I'm saying is the global elites plan, as they establish a new world right in front of our faces, even launching off massive firework displays to announce their creation of Atlantis and Dubai. And they are building these elite capitals. Meanwhile, we are all sitting back caught up in nation versus nation politics. Something that I don't believe they even believe in. So now we have the United States being set up in such a pattern. We've got the 10 regional governors being set up. We watch as the Denver International Airport is being the most sophisticated high-tech airport ever crafted. It is much larger than necessary. It was put in a place that was less convenient than the original airport, and is, of course, the New World Airport established by the Freemasons. We find that it has a Kevlar covering and, you know, of course, the strange Denver International Airport murals, which you can see in my film with Tex Mars, Codex Magica. Very curious indeed. So we can expect, as the plan was laid out by Henry Kissinger back in 1971 with Richard Nixon, to establish these 10 regional governors under the UN. So this put America under UN control. Then we watch as, you know, next thing should be the movement of the capitals from Denver, or from DC to Denver and Atlanta. So I wonder what they will do to the District of Columbia to bring this about. And this could lead and maybe be more on the threat from Iran, and I'll get to that as we get there. Okay, so we're now seeing also that here in America we have Northcom with their Sea Smurfs, yes, Sea Smurfs, which are the military men, troops that we have here in America, ready to stomp you down if you decide to revolt. But really, I think we're preparing for some sort of catastrophe, not so much a revolution. But let's not forget the Sea Smurfs. Okay, so we now have the idea that this is the lead capital in the 21st century, that we are establishing these modernized looking cities that are just, set up on crazy geometrical patterns, which takes you straight to Astana, Kazakhstan. Now, let me also mention that Australia was the 4th extraterrestrial nation in the world, meaning that they had launched into space. Astana, which is the capital of Kazakhstan, which means threshold, is set up like some sort of Aleister Crowley dream. I don't know. This thing, or you get to the Church of Satan or whatever you want to. The geometrical patterns set up in Astana are astonishing. And of course it meaning threshold, and that you have to walk through this pyramid of peace to get into the city, come upon the presidential palace, which has 2 blazing columns like the Freemasons that look like it should have electric bolts going between the 2 of them. And this includes a giant ball up on a spire that has a golden hand placed there by the creator or the architect, and it looks like something straight out of Total Recall. Very strange. We get to this and we start to understand that President Nazarbayev of Astana has been trying to establish not only a one world currency, which he called AK metal, which means supreme quality. So we got AK metal trying to be our new form of currency coming out of Astana, but they are also housing the 4th Congress of the world leaders, which mostly, when you read through the 3rd Congress, you will see quickly that it is mostly Muslim. So inside of this giant pyramid of peace, they have established a giant sun table where they can gather around and therefore unify religion under the pyramid of peace. How strange is that? But when we look outside the pyramid of peace, we see it encoded with numerous 666s. Now, this is if you understand the geometric patterns and the understanding that these guys are Kabbalists, and therefore we are dealing with Hebrew, and in Hebrew V is 6. When you look at the pyramid of peace, just below the big I at the apex, you will see 6 VW logos in the construction, in its geometric pattern. So this makes 6 666s if you're following my geometric patterns. If you don't understand, let me just explain very quickly. When we're looking at Hebrew, Hebrew is different than English in numerology, and therefore 6 equals V or V equals 6. When you look at Hitler's Volkswagen logo, you'll see that what we're looking at is a VV interlaced. So 2 V's being 6, 6, but crossing, making a third 6, so the Volkswagen logo will equal 666, along with 66, which is the number of the Quillipoth, or the dark side of magic, the souls of those that died insane, or what the Kabbalists call excrement. These include certain daemons like Lilith and Samael and Azrael and the whole troop there that was listed in the book of Enoch for bringing all of this strife to planet Earth. Now, looking deeper into the symbolism and the geometric patterns on the Pyramid of Peace, I found Marco Rodin, who is a mathematician that outlined and established a mathematical design for infinity, which was exactly like the Volkswagen logo and the geometric pattern on the Pyramid of Peace. Very strange indeed. Finally, we add to this Dubai, which is not too far away from there, where they established Atlantis, put up a giant island structure that is a tree of life, where they launched this multi-million-dollar fireworks display and high definition projection onto the building of Atlantis, the theme park, resort, I don't know what you want to call it. And all of this being done as the American economy crashed and burned, right according to my prediction on 10/13. So we see that they are announcing their new world. They are establishing and building their capitals. They are setting up the political structures, and we are all being led astray. If you're not too sure what I mean by these geometric patterns and how they're set up on the occult plans of Solomon, then go and check out my esoteric adventures in Nashville, which you'll find on my youtube.com/FreemanTV. I show you how this all functions and how it is set up. You know, we have to ask questions. We have to understand. Now, if they are laying out a giant pattern out in front of the Nashville Capitol, which is, it's the Bicentennial Mall there, and it is designed exactly to represent the Seal of Solomon to bind spirits. Now let's not forget who Solomon is. He's the lead magician. He is one that conjured demons. He had conjured 72 demons, I believe, and then finally made the last seal, which is the Bicentennial Mall's shape, to bind all of these spirits. So the shape that they used to make the Bicentennial Mall out in front of the Nashville Capitol is actually Solomon's seal to bind all of these spirits. It's broken, by the way. This is then set up around the globe as we start to see different geometric patterns being put out in this type of situation. So, you know, have a look of the aerial view of Astana and be astonished at how it's set up, or have an aerial view of Dubai or Canberra, and you will start to see these same patterns forming. Now, one thing I didn't mention about Canberra in Australia is that their Disney affiliate, ABC, happens to be Channel 666. I'm not making this up. 666 ABC with a DNA helix as their logo. You just can't make this stuff up. So we're starting to decide and determine that maybe this is the end times, or at least many people want us to believe that, and I think it's actually a plan. Even I think it was Jordan Maxwell came out and said, I don't know. Or no, actually it was Bill Cooper. Said, I don't know if they're following it as a plan, but the book of Revelation is absolutely unfolding in front of our eyes. And it has always been my belief that this was a guidebook, a plan, you know, something for them to follow, that this was not some sort of revelation, that this was not some sort of godlike prophecy, but that these men that are practicing these occult practices are following it as a plan. Now consider, when these gentlemen join the Skull and Bones Society, that they take on names from the book of Revelations, such as George W. Bush being temporary. Look it up in your concordance, you'll find it there. Or HW being, oh, what was he? Magog. Yes, so we had Gog and Magog, and then Bush was given the scroll of Gog, according to Tex Mars, and this whole thing just ties up into this whole picture. So when you see the president being Akhenaten reincarnated along with his entire family, Mother Queen T, Malaya, and Sasha being the two daughters of Akhenaten, it shouldn't be a surprise. Or should it? You know, this is all quite amazing, and it's hard to believe, even for someone that's uncovering it like myself. But it is unusual, and it keeps me going because it's just too much. So as we have, you know, Barack Obama in office, establishing 10 regional governors across the U.S., getting ready to move the capitals, and all of the things being set up while being threatened by Iran, and having giant spirals open up in the sky for his Nobel Peace Prize, it is all very curious. Meanwhile, the Vatican's setting up the VATT, or the VAT telescope there in Arizona. Well, of course, this has been established for some time, but set up also in another place to be able to watch incoming objects. Is Planet X real? This has been a question that I've been tracking for some time, and I don't cover and talk too much about, but certainly I remember the news reporting it. I remember, was that the 80s? When they started talking about Planet X on the news, that they had seen gravitational effects in the light refraction that suggested a body outside of our solar system that was perhaps 3 times the size of Jupiter. Then it dropped. We never heard another thing. Next thing you know, they launched the IRAS satellite, and we start to get X-ray infrared images of what they called a supernova, and this is that G1.9. NASA then had to reestablish their mathematics and say, well, we don't think that G1.9 is this old, it must be younger because it's getting bigger. Meanwhile, other scientists looking at the same effect are going, well, hey, that's not a supernova exploding, that is a brown dwarf star heading towards us. And you have the numerous accounts and many predictions and prophecies about an incoming star. We have this dark star, as the Grateful Dead heads know. We have the black hole sun, as the Stone Temple Pilots sing about. We have the sun behind the sun, the black sun, worshipped by the Nazis and the Freemasons and others, which really fits into the whole picture. So if you knew, as I was saying, that I just read the reports, well, I didn't read the report, but the headline that CIA is promoting Sitchin, then this would all fit in. But if you knew, and we must take into account the fact that all of the ancient structures were set up on astronomical patterns so that they could watch time, and not just short time, but long time. We're talking 26,000 years here, if not more. Or just busting it out in different equinoxes and solstices so that they could determine what was going on. Now, the ancient stories, strangely enough, when you go as far back as you can, go to cave paintings, and we'll find these petroglyphs of spirals over and over and over again. You can see a film, Lucas, which I just attached to myspace.com/FreemanTV. Lucas gave a talk at the Brave New Books getting into these different spiral petroglyphs. And when you look at each one of them, it is quite astounding, because you will find that it definitely seems that these people, these ancient peoples, now this is either post-massive civilization or pre-civilization, I'm not sure, but because of our alternative history, we're not too sure about these things. But what we do know is that these are cave paintings of spirals that seem to indicate that after the spiral comes, something enormous happens and everyone has to run for the mountains. Actually, the petroglyphs that you'll find of these spirals only occur in the mountains, and they show signs of flooding, they show signs of running, animals dying, and, well, strange praying mantis beings kind of leading the way. Very curious there. So we realize that maybe the spiral is a symbol of doom, but this petroglyph idea doesn't seem to correlate with what I understand the Norway spiral to be, which I can't say I fully understand what the Norway spiral was, but we have enough clues and evidence to suggest that it was an aluminum oxide cloud manipulated by an ionospheric heater there in Svalbard, Norway. So yeah, this is our world, folks. It's too much. But we've now got to a point, okay, then the last piece of the puzzle is that if these men in the mystery schools have been holding and hiding all of this knowledge, such as the library at the Vatican, which suddenly closed after 500 years of being open, and everyone had to scramble and go and try and gather what details and data they could from the books before this 500-year running library just suddenly shut down. And they don't know when it will open again. So we got to wonder what knowledge is hidden, what is kept there, and what is real and what is unreal. When we have Hugo Chavez and the Russian military announcing that America could have caused this devastation in Haiti with their earthquake machine, things are getting very dangerous. Because the public is ill-informed about any such type of technology, and they'll believe what they hear. Do we know that it was HAARP that caused the Haiti earthquake? No. Of course, the Haiti earthquake was predicted 2 years before it occurred, even stating that it would reach 7.2, that it would be of epic proportions and earthquakes. So, was it natural or no? We don't know. But here are these people screaming that America did it. Now, as I said, when I mentioned this about Milosevic accusing us of using HAARP to cause earthquakes and the floods in the Middle East, everyone just kind of scoffed at me, even though it was on the front page of the USA Today. God, I wish I still had those papers. Okay, so a new world being established, Kevlar airports, seed vaults, underground bases. Yeah, something is coming and they're preparing. And what is not going to happen is the public is not going to be warned. You can see this clearly in even Fife Symington's little Phoenix Lights event, where he was willing to just stand there and lie and laugh at the people asking about this large V-shaped craft floating over their city. And then to later come out and say, well, you know what, I had to lie to you because I was a little worried about your reaction. Yeah. I mean, these people were quite sane. No one was freaking out. And I don't think had he told them that it was an otherworldly craft, that they would have been even any more freaked out. but the plan was in order, and the plan is set. So it was not the time at this point to have you know about large V-shaped craft. But now it is the time. Now we see Hillary and Rockefeller running around carrying books by Paul Davies titled Are We Alone? For photo ops. Now you think this was just a caught off the cuff picture of her walking with Rockefeller with a book called Are We Alone? I guarantee you it is a psyop. I guarantee you this is set up. But that is not to say that there are not large V-shaped craft to fly over our planet. I've, of course, viewed one myself, and you start looking into this, and you're going to see many of them being reported. I remember when they were reported during the Russian war, and it shut down the entire warfare. This was early 90s. And when we start to see that you can go look at them, if you want to see what I saw, go check out in the Space War News on freemantv.com. You will see a link that says UFO over Chile, Aurora Fleet with a question mark. Because this is very much what I saw as the V-shaped craft flying over my car in Utah. Although the color was slightly different, but that could be due to the cameras. Okay, so now we have a secret space program, and it has been established long ago. You realize that the Nazis were building UFOs. If you want to go all the way back to Heron and his building of steam engines in Roman times, and understand how we have been manipulated through high technology throughout times. Look into the Brotherhood of the Bell, look into the Nazis' projects into spirals, and into trying to bust into the other dimension using, I think it was Mercury, within the Bell experiments. Let's start seeing where we're going. Realize that the Nazis rule your life, that they are all the corporations that you see. That is the reason Columbia's sportswear logo is a canted swastika, and of course the goddess Columbia being their prime goddess, and you'll even on my coat find doves, which is the symbol of Queen Semiramis. So you see, you could do this with every corporate logo. You want to go to Siemens, and I was talking about Epcot and pre-planned cities, and they've got the giant ball in there. And when you're inside of that giant ball, they tell you exactly how they took over your mind. So you might want to pay attention to that. You can actually watch the whole video of Inside the Ball on YouTube, and they will explain and express how glorious they are in controlling your brains through science, through language, through religion, and artwork. But this big ball is owned by a company named Siemens, which is of course known as Spaceship Earth, and it is now sponsored by Siemens. And you will see that Siemens, of course, was a Nazi corporation. You'll find their corporate logo floating above the Auschwitz camps, where they used the Auschwitz prisoners as their slave labor. Which of course takes us to Walt Disney, and I have covered this, so I think that you understand where I'm coming from. Just remember that Disney's channel in Australia is channel 666. That's all I'm saying, and realize that Fox equals 666, and just have a look at the picture. They are using revelations against us. Our president's name means lightning from heaven, which is the description of Satan, and he has to fight Apophis, who is Satan in Akhenaten's religion. This is not made up. I mean, this is made up. It's made up for intentional purposes, and it's ritual magic. It's all designed in there to bring about a particular state of mind. And that really brings to question as to how powerful our minds are. So as all of this is going on, as earthquakes are erupting in the Solomon Islands, in Guatemala, in Haiti, and numerous places. It didn't get reported. Everyone's focused on Haiti, but there were earthquakes 6.0 and higher all over the globe at that point. I believe even Yellowstone was hit. As all of these end-of-the-world effects start to occur, of course, what happens is Messiah figures start to appear. Now, I brought up Lucifer, redeemed, the supreme David Rockefeller. And I've received numerous emails about how much of a hoax he is. I understand this. I understand that there is a huge potential for a hoax with Supreme David Rockefeller, and that this whole thing is being set up. That's okay. That doesn't mean that we got to close our eyes and not have a look. I mean, come on. Any guy that's saying that Iron Man is based on him, that the technology inside of G.I. Joe is going to be used against us, or no, I'm sorry, the day the Earth stood still. Anyone that then gets a CNN money report saying that he's going to build the third temple in Jerusalem is going to get my attention, and I'm going to investigate. Well, it turns out that Steve Wilner is going to be the video editor and somewhat spokesperson for Michael Prescott, who is the third prophet, or the prophet of Supreme David Rockefeller, Lucifer redeemed. And so therefore I immediately contacted Steve, being that we've been kind of on the same track and somewhat in communication with each other, being friends on the synchromystical path. I was like, Steve, what's going on, man? Have you made a deal with the devil? And he kind of chuckled at me and said, no, I have not made a deal with the devil. Lucifer Supreme is exactly what he says to be, and we will be helping him build the third temple in Jerusalem. So, lo and behold, Steve has promised me exclusive reports on the progress of Supreme David Rockefeller. So you'll be able to get that here and at the Free Zone on Oracle Broadcasting at 8 p.m. So we will keep tabs on Supreme David Rockefeller, because I want to know. I gotta say, I want to know. But more than just Supreme David Rockefeller, there are other messiahs that are popping up, and one that has been in the back wings for quite some time is the Maitreya, being brought to us by Benjamin Creme, along with Share International. People are trying to sort out who the Maitreya is, especially since Benjamin recently came out and said that Maitreya had made an appearance on American public television, national broadcast. So people started to seek and try to figure out who was this Maitreya and what TV show did he happen to be on. Now the curious thing is that Benjamin Creme said that the Maitreya will take many forms, and you might have seen his original photograph taken in Kenya, where he was performing miracles, healing, and bringing things from nowhere. Well, take into account that when Maitreya was in Kenya and making his first appearance there publicly, so was Obama. Curious. Some even started to think maybe Obama was Maitreya. So now Maitreya came out, and no one knows who he is, and they're curious and wondering and searching, and they find this character, Raj Patel. Raj Patel said many words out of his mouth on, what was the name of her show? Democracy Now! And then also later making an appearance on, I believe it was Colbert. Is that right? I'll have to double check that. I'm sorry. Raj Patel came out saying many things about sharing, about how forgiveness was the crucial ingredients here, and that the world had to realize that we were one system. I agreed with everything Raj Patel had to say. Actually, when I looked into his eyes, I felt that he was very sincere. And of course I would expect that of a Maitreya or a Messiah. Well, Raj Patel is a very interesting character, and I intend to dig deeper into him as well. But what has happened is that there were certain signs and symbols that were supposed to lead to the appearance of Maitreya, one being a star. So as you go and you look at the different videos on Maitreya, the most recent being on Red Ice Creations, and you might want to catch my interview I just did with Henrik. It's up on my YouTube. And the second half for that, you'll have to subscribe to Red Ice Creations, which I highly recommend. They're a great couple of guys there, and worth listening to, and their interviews are fantastic. I love Henrik. So as you start to look, you'll see the video where they start to say that the star is appearing all over the globe. People are seeing it from Moscow to America. Now, immediately I noticed an interesting pattern with this star. Okay, so go have a look at the video. It is in the Space War News. Have a look at the star, and then go down where I have a link saying Maitreya's star with a question mark. Because once again, what I've always wanted to do for you is bring to you my memories, bring to you what I know. And that there was a lot going on that I was paying attention to back in the 90s that are coming to light now that most people weren't paying attention to. Like I was saying, people are laughing at me about Milosevic. Well, back at that same time, there was a project that the Russians had launched called the Novi Svet, or the New Light Experiment, which was launched February 5th, 1999. This can be found as the Znamya, that's Znamya 2.5, the Znamya experiment, or the New Light Experiment, where Russia launched in 1988 their first giant mirror up into space. Then the 2.5 came out in 1999, not to get you confused there. So there have been a couple of attempts to get a giant mirror up into space, and you will of course find this in my HARP video. This giant mirror, or the New Light Experiment, was of course supposed to radiate sunlight back to the Earth, warming regions in Siberia for agriculture was of course the plan. And you know, this is right about the time that 007's GoldenEye was coming out. So, and this was also the very moment that they were announcing that global warming might be a reality. I don't know if you guys remember all the way back then when they were still questioning this. So the Space Regatta Consortium of Russia launches a giant mirror up into space. They try for 3 days to get the fan to open so that then they could radiate sunlight back down onto Earth. And after 3 days of attempts, they say that it had completely failed and they were just going to burn it up in the atmosphere. You can find later details from the Russians themselves saying that that's okay, we'll then just put it on the International Space Station. Which the Endeavour is right now launching up there to bring the new robotics control center to the ISS. This is all getting very scary, and we're going to get into robots and all of the Metropolis ideas on a later Radio Freeman. Today I want to tell you about new capitals and end-of-the-world scripts, the coming and rising of messiahs, and the technologies that might be used to fool us all. So when you start to look at that Maitreya star, you will see the pattern, and I'll do this soon. I'll superimpose the very mirror over that star, and you'll see that they are in the same form. So let's not believe yet in this Maitreya star, the new star of Bethlehem, as it were. Let's first consider that it might be the Space Regatta Consortium's New Light Experiment. So we have to keep this stuff in mind. We have to remember Echelon. We have to remember the New Light Experiment. We have to remember the accusations of earthquake machines and all of that, so that things become more and more understandable. But are they understandable when we start to see giant orbs floating in and out of the sun through the Soho satellite? This was something that was actually talked about by Nassim Haramein, and now seems to be coming true. Is our sun possibly a gateway? Now you'll see the photographs that I have from 1999 up there from the Soho satellite. I took those myself, took them off the web myself, the Soho satellite, and you'll see giant portals, or what seem to be some sort of portal or weirdness opening up out of the sun and radiating some sort of beam. Very curious, very, very curious. And at that same time, we were watching something called the Sun Cruiser, which I think you can probably still look up, which seemed to be a giant, massive craft floating outside of the sun. Now we are getting many reports about these orbs opening and coming out of the sun. Meanwhile, what is going on in Somalia and Yemen? Now, as I covered earlier on the radio shows, you can go back to the archives. I hope you guys are all downloading Radio Freeman to your iPods, iTunes, and everything else so that you can listen to all of these shows at your leisure. I do have all the links there for you to do so over on freemantv.com. So I had reported to you when the Ethiopian Catholic Church had announced that they housed the true Ark of the Covenant, and that they were going to release it to the public, you know, let everyone know this was the true ark, and that he had to go and speak with the Pope first. Next thing we know, he returns from the Pope, and he is saying, well, you know, I never told you I was going to show the Ark of the Covenant to the public, but I still want to say that we do have the true Ark of the Covenant here in Ethiopia. Then we get later reports, this is months down the road, we get a Proto-Canaanite shard found, which establishes that the Ark of the Covenant most likely would be found in Yemen. Next thing we know, America is all rushing to Yemen and going to war in Yemen. Now, in 1980s, we had the first magnetic anomaly announced there in that port off of Yemen, off Somalia, and that this magnetic anomaly was actually reestablishing our understanding for plate tectonics. There are even images of vortex ocean openings there, which I can't confirm just yet, so I'll be looking deeper into that. But if you all remember, what sent all of the different ships from, you know, NATO, from the US, from the UK, from China, the list goes on as to everyone heading to Somalia into this port. Well, if you remember, it was all due to piracy. And when you realize that the pirates were taking on the Sirius star, then all of the clues start to come back together, and we see coded messages once again being passed to the Brotherhood so that they know where they need to be. So what is going on there? You know, what is it that we are entering into? What is it that is guiding this Brotherhood in their secret knowledge as they misguide us through their ritual magic and casting of demons in front of us, such as Barack Obama? We don't know, but we know the world is strange. We know that at this point we're moving from well, we've gone from a theocracy to a democracy, now into a technocracy. We see as they start to establish this Terminator salvation, or life on planet Earth thanks to robots, and like I say, I'll be getting more and more into that in the coming weeks. But we are watching the technocracy as it forms around us, as they launch all their necessary means, and they are using certain politics to say that this is necessary. Of course, I was able to predict that Obama would cancel the funding to NASA because it was obvious, you know. Anyone that's been listening to me was not taken by surprise by this announcement. We're going to SpaceX, we're going to the Dragons, we're going to Lockheed Martin and Boeing. No more will there be a national space program. Privatization is the key word here, and you know, corporatocracy is fascism. Let's know where we're at. So as the guidestones tell us in Georgia that we need to maintain the population at 500 million, let's realize that maintain means that they were already down to 500 million. So what is going to happen? We don't know. We know we can see the signs, and I'm going to keep trying to track them. But what we do know is that everything that we do believe at this point is false. We do know that the systems that we think we are trying to save, the super, you know, put trillions of dollars here and trillions of dollars there, is completely unimportant. That all of that is just to keep us busy, keep our minds taken over as these men of the age of reason take over with their technocracy and start to establish their global world. So we need to realize that we are being played on a large scale. We need to realize that every aspect of our lives is being programmed. When you find Apophis in video games, when you find you know, the latest Electronic Arts Dante's Inferno, which had a commercial there on the Super Bowl that was supposed to say "Go to hell," but they had to change it to "Hell awaits," as if that were any better. And let's remember that Disney did buy out Marvel and is working on buying out Electronic Arts, and then they'll put out their epic Mickey video game. So from video games to television shows to Grammy Awards, we start to see it all. We, of course, had Lady Gaga doing her Phoenix ritual, announcing that she was a monster, and that she was going to turn all of you into monsters, mind controlling you with her pop music. They then burnt her, and she rises from the ashes with none other than Elton John and a bunch of dead hands coming up out of the ground on their piano. Very curious there, but it doesn't stop there. Of course, then Queen Bee, which will form right into the Metropolis coming Robo-Sapien agenda. Queen Bee, or Beyonce, then comes out with a full troop of riot squads. You know, come on, this is not art. This is, you know, this is less art than the Nazis coming out on stage while Obama was watching the Kennedy Honors Awards. This type of blatant propaganda is just boring, really. I mean, what the heck was that? The dancers in the riot gear couldn't even dance. What are we going to think about that? But of course they followed this all up and kept it all scooped together with Pink, who then was put through the first Masonic ritual, having her pant leg halfway up, being black and white checkerboard, having her left breast bared with a heart over it, being hoodwinked or blindfolded before being hung from the ceiling. These are our Masonic rituals. Then we see as Project Chaos is being enacted, and you know, Eminem comes out and sings all about suicide. What happy Grammys are we having these days? How he wants to shoot and kill, and he is then trained and talking to the demons or the devil, and even took on the very name that these pop stars and hip hop stars are calling upon, which is Rain Man. I almost shudder to say his name live on the radio, but Eminem then announces that he is Rain Man. When you see the rest of the videos, like from Lennon Honor, you'll see that they are calling upon Rain Man, but Eminem said he was Rain Man himself. Now, once again, this is all part of this end of the world script. America is supposed to be Satan, and that is why it's so blatant at this time. This is why Lady Gaga does blood rituals at the VMA Awards and then Phoenix rituals at the Grammys. This is supposed to be obvious. America is supposed to be Satan. How can you have a global government if you don't have something to point back to and say, look what happens when you give people freedom? But we all know this is all just a farce, but who's going to remember, right? That's your job. That is your job. That is why I'm here, so that you remember how we got to where we're going. I don't have any intentions or beliefs that I can stop this juggernaut. That is not my goal. My goal is to have people remember how we got there, so once we're in the mess, we might know how we got there and that it wasn't truly our fault. When you realize James Cameron is producing Lady Gaga's videos, then you start to realize the level that this programming is going. She didn't make it. She didn't come up from the ground floor and work her way up. No, she was a hermaphroditic perfect icon that was perfectly able and wanting to be part of this New World Order, wanting to be part of the programming of Satan into you. So this is why she is at the top. Certainly not her singing skills. So now we have Eminem, and next thing you see is some man phoning into 9/11 saying, you know, or phoning into 911 saying, I just killed my wife and children. I couldn't help myself. I heard Eminem's lyrics going through my head and saw demons in their faces. This is the level that the programming goes. Now go check out Darren Brown. Check out how subtle clues can be programmed into people to make them do things that they've never thought they would do. This is programming, NLP. This is neuro-linguistic programming, and it is assigned and attached to certain songs and signs and colors. Go watch Darren Brown's The Heist and get some ideas of the levels of programming they are capable of. Then realize that they're bringing everybody into these rituals, performing this NLP type of programming. I mean, telling you you're a monster, and you're being mind controlled. This is part of NLP. Or listen to Obama's speeches when his text translator's actually working and he pulls off all of this NLP programming. Realize what's going on, that your mind is being manipulated. So this takes me to last Sunday's show with Clyde Lewis on GroundZeroMedia.org. Now, as I went on with Clyde, I wanted to tell him all these things that I'm telling you now. But often when you get in with another researcher, you will find that they want to also promote what they've got going, and we'll see where we meet in the middle. I'm very happy to do this with Clyde. I like his thoughts and his ideas. So Clyde then announced that it's very possible, and you will find all of this in Space War News, that Iran might launch an EMP weapon on the United States, announcing that they would do it on February 11th. This is, of course, the anniversary of the creation of their republic. So Thursday, the world may end as we know it. Who knows? It is possible, and the potential is there. What was very curious, and I noticed that I use that term a lot, or terms very curious, on this show and on radio, on the Free Zone, very often, because, well, hell, our world is very curious. Is that next day, okay, so Sunday night, Clyde Lewis makes this announcement while I'm on the air with him, and in honor of this, they will be rebroadcasting that show every midnight every day this week. So if you want to catch it, the link's there on freemantv.com. Go over, check out the show that we did. Also check out our show Grounds for Baphomet, which you will find under Freeman's TV shows. And realize that it was that day that I was saying 1013 would bring about the end of the American economy, and of course that was very correct, and it was on the very day that I was saying it. You know, that's all I'm saying. I haven't been wrong yet. There's lots that I need to gather together to bring about this information to you, and that's why, and I apologize for not having Radio Freeman here in these last couple of weeks, but hopefully the Bill Deagle shows have been entertaining and informing you along the way. I don't get to say as much on those shows, so I always want to get back to this, but I have been having some serious technological difficulties. I am almost back up and running, as you can tell. Hopefully I'll have some music again here soon. I like the music. It kind of sets the stage and sets the tone. But so here we are announcing on Sunday night that the potential of Iran hitting America with an EMP rocket, that they had just launched a rocket containing a mouse, a turtle, and some worms into space off the back of a truck. Now we're looking at the potential of them launching an EMP. You will find the Commission's reports from 2004 on the Space War News showing this very effect and how they expected it. And then you'll also find February 3rd, 2009 Defense Tech announcing Iran has the capabilities of hitting us with an EMP weapon. And what would happen with an EMP, of course, would be a total global electronic shutdown. Pretty much what they're also predicting, and NASA is saying, will hit in 2011. Due to solar cycle 24, because this is the same type of effect. Or they can be turned on and operated from HARP facilities. Different ISCATs or ionospheric heaters around the world can also cause this very same effect, because basically these ultra low frequency radio transmitters on antenna arrays around the globe are solar ground based solar flare emitters. So you know, is it Iran or is it an ionospheric heater? Once again, we won't know. But they'll tell us the story we need to hear so that they can further their agenda. But surprisingly enough, the very next day on the Drudge Report, headline reads, Iran to send telling blow, a one-punch blow to the Western powers. A one-punch blow could very well be an EMP. Because then this would shut down all of the electricity, or a major portion of the electricity in the United States for seemingly months, according to the Commission's report in 2004. It would cause over $700 billion in damage just from the EMP alone. This is not even a rocket hitting the ground. All I can do at this point is hopefully get you prepared. Because when we realize that most of what is destroyed is the people's dreams for the future. And this is why when the Russian economy collapsed, the poor folk were the ones that pretty much stayed strong. Because things didn't change too much for them. and I guess I can put myself in that category. By the way, your donations are greatly appreciated. This show is listener sponsored. I do not have any sponsors. I don't want any. I don't want commercials. I'm sorry for all the commercials on the free zone, but I also don't get any money from that. You can pick up my 5 DVDs. I highly recommend it. It will give you an understanding of what's going on there. Put a lot of work into those. You get 5 DVDs for $99.95 plus shipping, and it's going to blow your mind. I guarantee it. There's nothing on the net, nothing like it out there, because it all came out of my head. And it has been improved itself correct over and over again. So yes, your donations and your purchases are greatly welcomed and appreciated, and everything I get I turn right back around into this show so that I can give you a better and better show. So here we are sitting on the raggedy edge. Will it be a solar flare in 2011? Will it be Iran on Thursday? One day in the very near future, the world as we know it will end. The best thing you can do is prepare yourself mentally for that. The best thing you can do is quit grabbing for the carrot that's standing out in front of you and start looking around you at this very moment. Start to see who your friends are, who are around you, and try and develop new friendships. The ideas being promoted by Raj Patel and Maitreya about sharing are very critical to our times. It is best if we will begin growing some food, because that is the next crisis. The money crisis of America is to bring an American Union. Following this, there will be the food crisis, which will bring about the Asian Union, and we'll find all of these national or international capitals starting to take form. When you see what they're building in Astana, Dubai, and Canberra, you'll really start to get a bigger picture of this elite brotherhood that are controlling our world, have understanding of the ancient past that we do not, have understanding of our coming future that we do not, and are not willing to tell you what's going on so that they can keep their power. You must take back your power, and there is only one way to do this. You cannot seek Hollywood, you cannot seek your media, you cannot seek your politicians. There is only one way, and that is you forgiving all of the effects that have been happening to you so that you can erase the mind control, erase the trauma-based effects that have been placed on you, and start living as humans should live on planet Earth. We can find this way. It is right inside of our DNA. It is there inside of our genetics. It is the very reason each and every one of us knows that something is wrong. Because it's in our soul. Life and death, that's not as critical. We are all going to live. We are all going to die. That's why we're here, and we're here to learn. So enjoy the ride. Enjoy the learning. Don't live in the fear. That's where they want you. That's where they control you. Look at the amazing effects and things that are going on, and remember to be somewhat detached, because you are merely a soul incarnated into the third dimension, and this is not the end of your existence. But make the changes that you can, make the difference that you can, because you only have this one moment in the 21st century. You have this one moment of time here on planet Earth. And if you're spending it simply seeking this future that has been outlined by Pepsi and Doritos or different media agencies telling you what life is all about, like Walt Disney, you're going to be sorely disappointed. But if you start to develop and engender this sharing capacity, this sharing love that you can bring about to the people around you, this is what's going to be necessary in our very near future. So know that this is the case. Know that all of these things that are being tossed in front of you that are supposed to make you run and scream in fear of losing your American ideals, of losing your nation, whatever nation you may be in. I know this radio show is global. Realize that it's all engineered and that it's all false. That none of it is real. Honestly, it is a stage performance. It is active prestidigitation to try to get you to react in the way they want you to react. So the best thing for you to do is to react in a peaceful, loving, caring manner, which is inside each and every one of us. I know it is. This is why all of our military are committing suicide. Humans are not meant for war. So until next week, Stay informed, stay enlightened, and stay happy, and try and forgive all of the horrible effects that have been going on, because this is the only salvation you're going to find and receive. Until next week, this is Freeman signing off. Loving you all.